How's it going, everyone? Hopefully you're having a good week so far. Apologies that uploads have been kind of sporadic lately, but I am trying to get back on track of them. And today we have a super interesting commander to talk about. And by super interesting, I mean your friends are gonna not be super happy with you when you play this, but that's okay, because the goal is not to have friends, the goal is to have rats. This is Vren the Relentless, and this wonderful little rat says it's got Ward 2, and if any creature an opponent controls would die, they have to exile it instead. Ah boy, stacks! And at the beginning of each end step, create X11 black creature tokens that are rats for every single creature that was exiled from our opponent's stuff. So, oh, we are going to be very degenerate with this one. Let's talk about it. The core strategy we are going to be going with Vren is a control one, where we will be getting a maximum amount of rats on the board by making sure that our opponents have a minimum amount of creatures at all times. This is going to be a weird one. Usually the core strategy of the deck is separate from the removal section, but this is going to be a very short one because the removal section is actually the core strategy of the deck. But we've got some other stuff to talk about too. We have a lot of rats coming on the board, and we need ways to make sure that they can win the game. So to facilitate that, we are going to use cards like Wonder and Levitation to give all of our creatures flying. This will give us one layer of evasion for the rats so that they can get in and do their thing. Also, if we desperately need to break parity, Skemfar Shadow Mage is another way to win the game. Each opponent will lose X life, where X is the greatest number of creatures we have of a single creature type, and then we just go off to the races. We can also gain X life from it if we desperately need that, but primarily we're going to use this to just make sure that our opponents lose a maximum amount of life so that we can go and pack up and go to another table, because we're not going to be allowed to play again after we do that. And then we have Mirror Shield and Giant's Amulets as ways to protect our commander by giving it hexproof, since we will be the target of the board. Every time you play control, you will be playing a game of Arch Enemy. Luckily, this is a deck that is very well suited for being the arch enemy of the table. We also need more ways to make rats than our commander, so we've got a few cards that make rat tokens. Let's go ahead and take a look at those three right here, beginning with the Mirror of Life Trapping. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, if it was cast, exile it, and then return all permanent cards exiled with Mirror to the battlefield under their owner's control. We have a minimum amount of creatures that we are trying to summon. This here, though, is going to do one very solid job for us. Every single time our opponents cast a creature, it'll touch the board, their strategy will get disrupted, and our commander at the end of the turn will spawn a new rat. This means even when we are not removing their things, we are still technically removing enough things for our commander to care about. Ogre Slumlord will give all of our rats Death Touch, and also can give 1/1 rat creature tokens when creatures die. Note, though, this will not spawn tokens when our commander is not on the when our commander is on the board. He is a bit of a non-bo with our commander. This is effectively a lieutenant to build up enough rats while our commander is uncastable, so that we can still push forward with our strategy. Then we have Piper the Swarm that can create a 1/1 black rat token anytime we need, but it can also grant all rats we have Menace. We can also use this to sack 3 of our rats to gain control of a creature if we are desperately in need of that. Then we also need ways to make sure that our important pieces can come back onto the board later in the game, so we've got a bunch of reanimation abilities. Most of these are either going to get multiple creatures, or they are going to be very recurable for a very specific reason. Let's begin with Geth the Thane of Contracts. This gives all of our creatures -1/-1, and if we use this, we can return a creature card from our graveyard to the battlefield at any point, and then exile it after it dies. Do note, though, that some of our creatures that make everybody lose creatures, like, say, this Demon's Disciple, will force us to sacrifice extra cards while Geth is out. So be very careful which cards you pull out. State-based actions will kill Fleshbag Marauder types if they have only 1 toughness, and Geth will get rid of them. Use this to bring other important pieces on the board, not just recur the Fleshbag Marauders, unless you've got a rat token you're willing to sacrifice while doing that. So please be careful with Geth. Then you've got Victimize, to choose 2 creatures in your grave, put them on the board by sacking a creature you have. Altar of Ball lets us get rid of a token to reanimate a creature. Vat of Rebirth reanimates a creature for 3 mana if you have 4 oil counters on it, which are easy to get because you get oil counters whenever your own creatures die. And Dread Return reanimates any creature, and then it's got flashback. We can cast it for free from the grave by sacking 3 creatures. And that'll about do it for the core cards of the deck, because well, the actual strategy of the deck is going to be later in the video because of how much we are leaning in on it. But let's talk about drawing into our strategy before we get to the true core of the deck. All right, let's talk about the draw engine in our deck, because we do need to get to our important pieces very, very quickly. So we're going to start with Feed the Infection and Ambition's Cost. Each of these let us draw 3 cards and lose 3 life. Shoreline Looter allows us to have an unblockable rat that will draw us a card and discard a card unless we have 7 or more cards in our graveyard, in which case it will just draw us a card. Factor Fiction lets us reveal the top 5 cards of our graveyard, of our deck, choose an opponent. They separate those cards into 2 piles, and then we put one of those piles into our hand. It's followed up by Sauron's Ransom and Hostile Negotiations, which do very similar versions of that effect. We are a deck with a combat win con, so Bident of Thassa will draw us cards anytime one of our rats makes contact with somebody's face, and Military Intelligence will draw us cards every time we swing with 2 or more rats. Distant Melody will draw us a card for every rat we have. Dire Sight lets us surveil 2, draw 2, and then lose 2 life. Reconnaissance Mission does the same thing as Bident of Thassa, and Pact of the Serpent lets us choose a creature type, and then a player draws X cards and loses X life, where X is the number of creatures that I control that are of that type. So that mostly is going to be used just so that we can draw cards, but there are some instances where you can use it to turn somebody else's deck into Swiss cheese. Say they're playing an elf deck and they got a bunch of tokens, or they do the Scurry Oak infinite combo but didn't win with it. Just use Pact of the Serpent and suddenly they will die, either from drawing their entire deck or just dying from, damage like a normal person. That said, let's now get to the meat and potatoes of the deck. Alright, I usually only have 1 removal and interaction section, but we are splitting this into 3 parts because of the type of deck we are running. Now, our commander's ability is quite unique. It wants to see a lot of creatures enter the graveyard, or rather try and then get exiled. So while we can run a lot of cards that will remove a single creature from the board, let's go ahead and maximize the effect of our rat commander by using a ton of Fleshbag Marauder effects. The first part of our removal package is the Flesh Bags. Each of these has some type of ability that will cause everybody to sacrifice a creature. So look at Chain Devil. When it touches the board, everybody sacrifices a non-token creature. Demon's Disciple makes everybody sack a creature or a planeswalker. Extract Confession makes everybody sack a creature. It's got a Collect Evidence ability as well to force it to be a good creature. Locust Heavy Destroyer can do the sack thing while also having Unearth to use it again. Gravelighter makes everybody sack a creature, but if they've already lost a creature this turn, then instead we, draw a card on top of that. Wasteland Raider lets us make everybody sack a creature, but also has Squad. Liliana's Triumph does it as an instant. Vraska's Fall does it as an instant. And Dusk Mangler makes everybody sack a creature and discard a card and lose 4 life. But all of these cards are doing the same thing. We play 1 to make 3 rats, and our opponent's cards are collateral damage. And everybody will always have at least 1 creature on the board because most people have creature commanders. The other half of our removal package, though, or the one other third of our removal package, is going to need to be dedicated to counter spells because our commander is going to be such a threat that we need to make sure that our stuff is protected. So Wash Away can counter other people's commanders. Saw It Coming has Foretell while also being a counter spell for 2 if we foretell it. Negate can get rid of a non-creature spell. Dissolve and Sinister Sabotage are the same card with Surveil and Scry, letting us counter a spell. And Cancel is the basic counter spell that we could afford in our deck's budget. But we also have Butcher of Malakir in our regular removal package, making everybody sack a creature anytime one of our creatures dies. This will double up on all of our stuff, making us spawn 6 rats every time we play a Fleshbag Marauder clone. Curse of Swine exiles X target creatures, making our commander do its thing. Gix's Command can make everybody sack a creature, but also lets us return 2 creatures from our graveyard to our hand when we do it. And it's also got a mini board wipe if we desperately need it. Rankle is a recurable version of the everybody sacrifices a creature effect while also letting us draw cards. Resculpt can exile a creature or an artifact. Feed the Swarm can blow up a creature or an enchantment. And Meteor Golem can blow up any permanent our opponents have that we deem threatening. We have such a high removal package because our main source of winning the game is making our opponents' boards go full into exile and us laughing maniacally like a supervillain. Now let's talk about affording all of these cards. We actually get to have a pretty modest ramp package with a deck like this because none of our stuff really it costs a whole lot. So we've got some very minimalistic things here, beginning with a Charcoal Diamond and a Sky Diamond, so that we've got access to the colors our deck cares about, a Dimir Signet and an Arcane Signet for basic mana rocks, Planner Atlas to make sure we have a guaranteed land on the third turn, Mind Stone for draw when we need it to be and also a mana rock otherwise, Fractured Power Stone for a generic mana rock, Wayfarer's Bauble to get a basic land out of our library, Ornithopter of Paradise as an Arcane Signet on legs, and then Honored Heirloom to let us exile cards from people's graveyards so that even if they think they can play Reanimation, they can't. We are proving them to be liars. As for our lands, we are going to be running 10 swamps and 9 islands, and then we're going to have 9 dual lands. Exotic Orchard and Command Tower, River of Tears, even though it's got a funky ability, Darkwater Catacombs for a filter land, Choked Estuary for a reveal land, a bounce land in Dimir Aqueduct, Sunken Hollow for a searchable land, that also can come into the battlefield untapped. Tainted Isle comes into play untapped if we have a swamp, and Fetid Pools comes into play tapped all the time, but it's got cycling in case you need a draw. Also, to guarantee the swamp for the basic for Tainted Isle, we also are running 8 fetching lands. We have Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse, and we have Escape Tunnel. They're all the same card. Myriad Landscape can ramp while fetching us stuff. Shire Terrace, Esper Panorama, and Promising Vein are all the same card as well, letting us have an untapped land that can also grab us any basic land we need from the deck. And Ash Barrens can be cracked out of the hand to get us any basic that we need. And that basically does it for the deck. It's a very straightforward and simple deck. And if you wanted to push the deck a little further, then, well, let's talk about the kind of stuff that you would do when upgrading it. As per usual, if you are upgrading any of the decks that I have built, then really it just comes down to a matter of vibes in terms of which cards you want to add in and which cards you want to take out. I pick the cards I do in the deck because I'm working on a very strict budget, but you at home don't need to be working on as strict budget as I am. That said, let's talk about the cards I would add in. Mire of Misery is an interesting card in that it lets everybody opponent sacrifice a creature or an enchantment. It gives you another access to enchantment removal. In Garrick's Wake is a fully one-sided removal piece that will also board wipe everybody and give you rats for all the cards as long as our commander is still on the board. Lord Skitter gives you some more rat synergies while also giving you rat tokens. Fell the Profane can get rid of a creature or a planeswalker. Ayara First of Lockswain is a pseudo win con in the deck if you can fit it in, because it will burn people for 3 life every single time one of our flesh bags spawns 3 rats. Priest of the Forgotten Gods gives us a repeatable way to turn our rats into more sacrifices, and if we are making everybody lose 1 creature each when we use Priest, then even if we sack 2 rats every time, we are always coming out rat positive. Offer You Can't Refuse is a super good counter spell that I just can't fit into my decks. Phyrexian Arena I normally don't like. The pay 1 life, draw 1 card constantly isn't great, but since we are having to have incremental stuff to protect our commander, I think it actually has more of a purpose here. Kindred Dominance is another one-way removal board wipe that can get rid of anything that is not a rat. No Mercy can punish people for dealing damage to us. Black Market Collections gives us the better version of Phyrexian Arena, in my opinion, that can also spawn rats in its own right. Maro Nar is a rat that gives all of our rats fear and can sack a rat to make X rats, where X is the rats that we control. That's right, it's Rat Krenko. Maro Nar is Rat Krenko and is probably a wonderful rat deck in its own right. Roaming Throne can double up on all of our rat triggers, including our commander. Dictative Erebos can force our commander to work doubly well. Anytime we sacrifice a Fleshbag Marauder style creature, then we make people sacrifice 6 total creatures instead of 3. It backs up the Butcher of Malakir. And Force of Despair can be used to blow up all creatures that your opponent puts on the battlefield instantly by exiling a black card from your hand. That all said, figure out which cards of these you would like to run in the deck, and if you've got any other options that you want to use for upgrading it, then go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. But with that said, in conclusion, Vren is, at least the way we've built him here, one of the most straightforward decks you could possibly build. And that's probably why the runtime of this video is only going to be like 17 minutes instead of my usual like 20 to 40. Anyway, being able to have access to repeatable ways to spawn rats, and that rat spawning mechanic being tied to removal, allows us to play just Dimir control, which is really strong, like a very strong Dimir control deck. Usually control decks suffer from I don't know how to win the game itis, but Vren circumvents all of that by spawning the game-winning pieces on his own. He's just so good and straightforward. I love him. That said, let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you have a commander that you want me to work on, then let me know down there. Do know, though, that I'm going to be focusing a little bit on some Bloomburrow stuff and other stuff that people have suggested around my LGS for a couple weeks, so it may take me a sec to get to all of the responses. But I did get caught up on a couple of them recently. Hopefully you guys liked the Magus Lucia Kane deck. Also, I have a follow-up to that I have to make, but that's for another video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Send this video to a few friends if they want to build their very own ratless rat deck. And as always, everyone, insert end of video tagline here. Hey, just wanted to give a quick thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who help keep me afloat and help keep this channel going. YouTube and Twitch are wonderful platforms, but at the end of the day, stability is not one of their strong suits. If you want to support my channel, then obviously Patreon is one of the best ways of doing that. Link is in the description. But I do want to personally thank everybody who has contributed to the channel. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Autumn and Angel, Nixie Chan, Mark Anthony, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fire Shard. And everyone else who supports my channel and lets me do what I do full time. This is a dream job of mine that I never believed that I would be able to take full time, and with your help, I've been able to do it. So thank you so very much for that. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you all enjoy, and I hope you all are having a wonderful time. I will see you all in the next one, hopefully.